You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
Poshmark, for some reason, it thinks of me as a woman, and I can't change it to being a man. Like, when I made the account, I said man, but it only shows me advertisements for women's clothing and women's purses.
Well, that's because 98% of their business is women.
That's what I'm saying. But they won't change it back. But anyways.
Did you say you were a girl at it?
No, I never said that. Welcome to Hip and Humble Podcast. I'm Aram.
And I'm Mom.
And we want to welcome you to our show. We talk about all things antique and collectibles. Before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors, Hip and Humble Antiques, LLC. We got 3 locations, 2 in Virginia, 1 in Oklahoma City, or just outside of Oklahoma City in Bethany. The 2 in Virginia are at Boswell's Corner Antiques in Stafford. The second is at Oldies But Goodies Antiques in downtown Fredericksburg. And the third, like I said before, is in Bethany at Rink Gallery. And of course, for those of you that are not all about the driving, we have a store on Etsy. When you have time, please go and check us out. If we don't have anything that tickles your fancy at the moment, I promise we will soon.
New stuff all the time.
All the time. In fact, we just put out, I think 5 or 6 new porcelain figurines out today.
Yeah, they were really pretty neat. Those were fun to find, and then I researched all of them, and it was pretty cool.
They're definitely really cool pieces.
Yep. Some of them are Japan, which I believe is 1921 to 1941.
Yeah.
Before World War II.
What's interesting is they're so intricate too. It's really cool. I mean, of course, that's after the Industrial Revolution, so they did have machines, but the machines back then were not nearly as precise.
But still, a lot of them are still hand painted.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nice thing too, that you really don't get a whole lot today. Everything is commercial, and it's all a machine or whatever.
Well, it's plastic too.
Well, yeah.
You don't have a lot of porcelain or glass stuff unless you're paying a lot more.
Well, yeah.
But
people don't like it. Well, a lot of them don't like it because it breaks.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why we went from glass milk bottles to plastic.
Which sucks, because glass milk bottles are amazing.
Well, they are. They are. And if you buy real milk, then you still get glass bottles.
Yeah, glass milk bottles are fantastic. But moving on, in this episode, before we get too far into that, in this episode we're going to talk mostly about radios. Actually, we're starting a new, kind of a new thing. We're going to put out a theme and kind of stick to that theme for a couple episodes. So the theme is actually radio. And so this topic is incredibly diverse, and there are a lot of fantastic stories that have to do with radio. So for this topic, we're gonna split it into small, like I said, smaller different segments where we talk about basically different things or different key figures in the radio and communication industry and the effects they had. I mean, everything from invention to innovation. Radio was one of the first ways to broadcast communication to the masses. If you think about it, nowadays we have almost infinite ways to communicate and project information to the point where now it's almost too much information to process.
It's true.
Yeah. Could you imagine reading every page ever created on the internet?
No. I can barely read one page created on the internet. It just takes so long.
Well, I agree. I think for one practical reasons, because you're staring at a computer screen, it's a lot different than if you're like reading a page in a book or something like that.
Well, my whole thing is when computers came out, they were supposed to make your life easier, which that seems to be the theme of every product ever made.
Yeah, that's kind of what
then it was
people
like,
invent for.
Holy crap. Oh, look, now with the computer, now this is broken. Oh, look, we're putting in a new operating system. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing that. Yeah, just a minute. It's only going to take you 45 steps to put something on a calendar. Oh, okay. Well, hold on just a sec. Oh, wrote it down. Bam, done.
Yeah. No, there's definitely something that you said for analog. But I will say, for communication's sake, radio was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, before radio, the furthest you could get a message to travel was the furthest you could send a letter, which at that time was around the world. But that was only to one person, or maybe
Pony
a couple.
Express. We had Pony Express.
Not by the time they invented the radio.
I'm just saying, Pony Express would have been fun. Pony Express would still be fun.
It would still be fun, but you'd also, if you sent a letter from Virginia to California, it would take 3 months to get there.
Not on Pony Express.
On Pony Express, it was 3 months.
You don't know that.
I absolutely do know that.
You don't. No, you don't.
I really do. We studied that.
Well, you don't know.
Okay. But anyway.
Fast horses.
Very fast. You know, it might not be 3 months. It might have been a month. But still, that's quite a long time. That's quite a long time.
But I think the point is that communication has come a
long way. Absolutely. And
you could reach so many more people.
Yeah. I mean, just reading at this point, like we were talking about the web pages, it wouldn't be possible to read every web page on the internet in this lifetime. One, because it's constantly expanding, people are constantly adding. But I'm saying, even if you stopped all the expansion, you only read every web page that's ever been created up to this exact point in history, you couldn't do it in a lifetime. No. And I mean, you couldn't even read all of social media in a lifetime if you would, stop just today and read everything from today and back.
Yeah.
So there's 3 key figures at the beginning of radio that are really interesting. And the names are really cool. The first one I'm going to mispronounce because it's Italian. It's Guglielmo. Guglielmo.
Googly Moogly.
Marconi.
I think that's where the one movie, the Googly, the monsters.
Uh-huh.
That's where the inspiration came from.
It very much could be. But his last name is Marconi, and that's why I'll refer to him from now on. The other 2 that we're going to talk about this today are William Dubier and Reginald Aubry Fessenden.
That is very high class.
That is a very high class name, but wasn't a super high class kid.
Just saying, that is a that is quite the name.
That is quite the name. But Marconi he's credited with the invention of the radio in the 1890s. But like anyone, like any story that starts off with, well, this is the person credited with it.
Generally means the secretary invented it and the guy took the credit.
There's a lot of he wasn't married at the time.
I'm sure it was some girl walking down the street then.
That's plausible. It's very plausible.
Somebody he met in the local market.
Barber
shop,
probably. Well, I mean, we learned whenever we were talking about the hair dryers that's where the majority of people met.
It's true.
And that's where the majority of like news was shared and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he developed Marconi's law. Funny enough. Marconi developed Marconi's law. Marconi's law is actually the relation between the length of antennas and the maximum signaling distance of radio transmissions. So he wasn't the guy who figured out that radio waves could be transmitted.
He was like a math guy.
Yeah, basically.
Him and I would not be able to talk.
No.
I don't math.
No, there was another guy named Hertz. Hertz actually discovered that you could send radio waves from one point in the air to another. But at the time, he didn't think it was a big deal. For a lot of the 1800s, it was a pretty well known fact that you could send radio waves through the air, but they didn't think that it was going to go anywhere. They didn't think that it was important.
That's what a lot of things, like television and all that, they're like, yeah, this won't catch on.
Right.
Oh, okay. Like electricity. Nobody's going to pay that. That's not going to catch on.
Yeah. Well, I did hear the other day that apparently Nikola Tesla had invented a way to and everybody fact check me on this because this is a conspiracy theory, so don't quote me. But but apparently Nikola Tesla had invented a way to get electricity, and basically it was so easy that he could have done it for free. Basically, he got it from the air or something like that. I don't know specifically, but apparently
Tesla got electricity from the air.
Yeah.
Well, just a little thing. People will sit there, and I've heard people say with the Bible, they're like, "Oh, look, the Bible contradicts itself in the first chapter about God created the earth, He created the night and the earth." The
heavens and the earth, night and day.
Night and day and all this. And they're like, well, wait a minute, he didn't make the sun until whatever. And it's like, but there's a whole lot of other things that create light. Electrostatic.
Yeah.
There's, all of this other stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is,
that.
And to me, if you're creating the night and the day and you're designating between the two, that would be when he created the sun. That would be in my head.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other things going on. Which I think that probably most of the guys back in that age were very religious people and probably understood that.
Yeah, well, that and also God Himself is light. I mean,
right.
God is light.
Yeah.
So He didn't necessarily need to do that, but He knew He wasn't going to dwell in His form in this earth.
Right, but my point is that there's a lot of different ways to make light.
Yes.
Just like airwaves.
Yes. Well, that and fire. I mean, when he was, developing the earth, I mean, there was, it was all water, and then he made lava, which made the lands and everything like that, so.
Yeah, but we're talking about communication. But I will say.
We are.
Fire, smoke signals is a form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And just so you know, folks, smoke signals are still used. The last time that I remember personally of smoke signals sending a communication was the day my brother was born. So, 1977, my uncle was in Africa, way out somewhere. I don't even remember where, but he was way out in the tribe. And my brother happened to be born on my uncle's birthday. So they literally sent smoke signals to the tribe that he was visiting to tell them that my brother had been born on his birthday.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
that in the story.
That's like a way big precursor to radio.
Quite a big. Well,
radio
was invented by then, but smoke signals were way before then.
Yeah, apparently not in this particular African tribe.
No. And there's probably still. I mean, there's definitely still some that don't have radio.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure the majority of them don't.
I wouldn't say the majority at this point.
Oh, well, you don't know. I mean,
I don't know. So.
Well, no, I'm just saying. That would be interesting to find out.
How many have radio?
How many do?
Yeah.
And then, of course, even then you don't know because there's some countries that, look how progressed we are. We've got blah, 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 blah.
Well,
that's only on their webpage.
I was talking to, at the International Pentecostal Holiness Church Conference, I was talking to a gentleman who was a missionary over to Africa at the time, and he said, so a lot of them, their culture has been so corrupted because it's like they have a lot of these governments have put basically like charging towers all throughout the bush.
Yeah.
And because a lot of these tribes have adopted like phones and stuff like that, and it's kind of sad because to see the kids out there and they're in like their loincloths and so on and so forth, and they're sitting there quoting rappers because they have access to the internet.
Right.
And so it's like they basically spit on the culture that they have because they see the culture of the U.S. through the internet, and they're like, oh, that's what I want. It's like,
Okay, that's a whole nother long topic.
That's a whole other thing. Sorry, back to...
Are we, how much of our culture, or how much of us not having a culture by having all of this access to whatever?
Yeah.
How much creativity is lost?
That's a good question. Back on creativity though, Marconi was actually a really creative person. He was an Italian inventor. He was also an electrical engineer, but he kind of parlayed that into being an entrepreneur or a businessman. He founded the Wireless Telegraph and Signal Company in the United Kingdom in 1897. So he was actually the one he developed the radio telegraph system. So obviously all of these other guys before knew about radio waves, but he figured, hey, if this exists, I'm sure that I can get a signal from one point to another. And so he thought, all right, well, I'm going to develop something that sends telegraphs from one place to the other, because at this time they were communicating long distances using telegraphs and really, really long cables. Right. So he thought, all right, well, if I can do this wirelessly, then we're not gonna have to, rely on cables, because as you may or may not know, at that time they had cables literally running across the Atlantic to talk, from the U.S. to Europe or to the UK and so on and so forth, and that's what all of the communication between the two continents had consisted on, besides letters and things like that. So and that cable that was running across the Atlantic was cut multiple times, because that's a really long cable and you can't monitor it all the time going across. Sharks, whales. More of the bottom dwelling creatures.
Pirates.
There were pirates at that time, but they were not necessarily worried about the communication between England and...
You don't know. They probably just saw a wire out in the ocean and were like, what the heck is this?
I don't think
Slice.
So. I don't think so. It's pretty cool.
Then Johnny can't talk to Grandma anymore because of pirates. Just saying. Pirates are cool.
Pirates are cool, but I don't think they slice the transatlantic
I think we still
telegram line.
We still have cables that go across.
Yeah.
So the BIOS and I don't know.
I'm not sure. I didn't look into that yet. Maybe I'll look into that and I'll remind everybody next week.
Well, you'll inform everybody next week.
That's
Can't remind them if they don't know.
Well, I'll remind myself to inform them.
Okay, well, you can do that.
So Marconi actually, in 1909, he shared a Nobel Prize in Physics with Carl Ferdinand Braun.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I said before...
What did Carl get his prize for?
They shared it.
Oh, they shared it.
Yeah, they shared it for basically for their
radio.
For their radio, their work in transmitting. Because whenever he founded the Wireless Telegraph and Signal Company, he did that after he commercialized, he developed and commercialized the wireless telegraph transmitter. And that's what he sold to different people, and so they were given the Nobel Prize in Physics. Braun helped him with that, and they were given it collectively for their contribution to radio and communication. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, he was about him personally, because he was actually pretty interesting. He was a nerdy kid, born into Italian nobility on April 25th in 1874. He didn't go to school. He was homeschooled. But not by his parents. He was taught at home by a series of tutors that his parents hired. The first transmitter that he made, it looked really weird. It kind of looked like, it was just like your regular kitchen table, and it had these two poles going alongside of it with another pole and what looks like a tin foil sheet kind of suspended in midair above these two, they look like little generators.
He's got to have some awesome parents, because let me tell you, homeschooling boys and the crazy stuff that they come up with. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to have somebody butcher up your table to make whatever.
Well, by this time he wasn't using their table, but
I can guarantee
definitely
you there's some crazy stuff before he got to that experiment.
Oh, I'm sure. But he used a telegraph. He discovered that if he raised his antenna, so the reason that how he discovered Marconi's law was he discovered that if he raised his antenna, he was able to transmit further distances. He eventually got to the point where he was transmitting wirelessly over 3 kilometers, which was incredible. Which is unheard of. I mean, obviously, this is the first time anyone had transmitted anything wirelessly that far in history. Right. And so he used a telegraph key as a transmitter to send the short and long pulses of Morse code. And the British eventually used his technology for maritime rescue. The most interesting the most interesting thing that happened with this technology was his technology was used on the Titanic. That's how the survivors on the Titanic were rescued. They used his maritime transmitter to send that SOS out,
right,
and get people to come out and rescue them.
It's too bad he wasn't able to build that ship.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have been better if he built it. Well, I don't know. He was an electrical engineer, not a nautical engineer.
I think they could have used him anyway.
They probably could. Well, technically they did. They used his technology.
Well, yeah. But, in the shipbuilding aspect.
The next guy, William Dubier.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, he actually lived 109 years.
Really?
Yeah, he lived a long life. He was born July 25th, and
he must have been a good kid.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, they do. What does the Bible say? The key to living a long and happy life is honoring your father and mother.
That's right.
Yeah. So he was born in 1888 and he died in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah. He lived through World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea.
Almost a civil war.
Yeah, the Great Depression.
Yep.
Yeah, quite a life.
Quite a life, and you know what? He survived.
Yeah, he made it through all that.
He did. And good for him. And why don't we let him, be an example?
Yeah. We'll talk more about him after our break.
Okay.
All right, guys, we want to go ahead and thank our sponsors again, Hip and Humble Antiques, LLC. So if you guys can, please follow us on Instagram. It's hipn.humble. That's HIPN humble Instagram. We post all of our new episodes, and we also want to thank the Going Solo Network for putting on our show. We want to thank you guys, especially, for listening to us. And if you are just tuning in after this, please go ahead and go back and listen to the first half, or if you're listening to this in the future, because today is actually the 13th of August, and this will be aired quite some time in the future on the Going Solo Network. But if you're listening to this on a Monday, we will also be airing the first half and second half again on the following Wednesday. So if you didn't catch the first half and you want to, please go back and listen to it then. So anyways, thanks again for listening, and back to our show. And before we get back to Dubier, we had a weird find of the week.
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. Do you want to tell them what it was?
Well, it quacks. No, it doesn't. It clucks.
It clucks, huh?
It used to cluck.
Okay.
I don't know. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
That's a long conversation.
I think it's the marble egg.
The marble egg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Came across these beautiful marble eggs. So they were made in Pakistan, and all kinds of great colors.
Oh, yeah.
Really some great colors in them.
They look fantastic. If you're into stones or like healing stones and stuff like that, they have a great feel to them. They're marble, so they're not like, it's not like some of these gems or things you might get, but they do have a really great feel to them.
Yeah, they really do, and they would be absolutely gorgeous in a glass bowl, or you could put them on a little pedestal. Yeah, but they're really pretty neat. Yeah, they're neat little things. They're nice cool conversation pieces too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, they're really really cool.
Yeah, a lot of people will. A lot of people I've always seen usually have them in bowls in different places. Do you know what would be pretty is if you had like a window where you could kind of set them up.
Oh,
so you have the light behind them.
So you have the light on them? Oh, that would be fantastic. Gorgeous. Yeah. No, absolutely. Really pretty. I love marble.
Really, really pretty.
I would love to have marble floors.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Especially heated marble floors. They have those ones with the heat underneath them.
Yeah, that stuff's pretty cool. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah,
my mom and dad had, and my mom and Papa, they had Trazodine.
Trazodine?
Yeah, floors. And they finally took them out and stuff, but honestly, there wasn't anything wrong with them. But they were, it was just like one little tiny section there, so, it was time to update and whatnot. But I always thought it was so pretty. Yeah. I always liked it.
Well, the marble,
nobody likes anything when they change your, home and stuff you grew up in. It's like,
yeah. Well, there's a nostalgia of it. And for me, it's different because we grew up everywhere. So there's never like a home. Maybe Nana's home.
Yeah. I say my mom's house is probably really, I guess, the only one that's always been constant for you guys.
Yeah. Nana and Grandma and Grandpa Rice's, but we're definitely at Nana's more.
Yeah.
So I will say when she changed the red shag carpet, I was
hey, you don't get any better than red and pink shag carpet.
No, that was pretty fantastic.
That was awesome. That stuff will eat Legos.
Back to the tile and stuff. I had a quick story before we move on, but the tile is it's so nice, especially in the summer too, because it stays really cool. And it's funny because Brady, our dog, every time I go out and I'll throw the ball for him, nowadays, as soon as I run back in, he runs into the bathroom and he'll lay on the floor so he can get cool because our bathroom is tiled.
Yep. That's funny.
So before we had our little break, William Dubier is who we were talking about, a centurion. That is a term for a person who lives 100 years or over. And he was an American inventor, not Italian, like our previous gentleman, in the field of radio and electronics. He demonstrated radio communication at Seattle's Alaska Yopupicon. Excuse me, let me say that. Try not to butcher it again. Upopicon.
Upopicon?
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's a place?
That's apparently. Apparently the place is Seattle's Alaska Upopicon Pacific Exposition on June 21st, 1909, 10 years before the first commercial station operated. So that was a big deal, obviously.
That was a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think those expos and stuff, I know, those were big things. What we kind of dumbed down now to county fairs, which I will say the last time I went to a county fair, I was very, very disappointed because it was mostly like rides and all that kind of stuff. But used to, especially the exposés and stuff, that's where your new inventions were debuted.
Oh, yeah.
And they were huge things to go to. They
still have those today, but they're a lot more fancified. They're a little more elitist.
Well, yeah, but they, the last one that, you and I went to, it was kind of depressing. I kept looking around for, okay, where's the local stuff? Where are the quilts?
Yeah.
Who canned the best corn this year?
Yeah. But there wasn't. It was more just like
well, there was like 2 cases of kind of hometown stuff, and then that was it. The rest of it was...
Yeah, it was just like funnel cakes and...
Well, it was like, look at me, I'm selling those, things you stick in the microwave to put on your head or whatever they are. Commercial stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Which, is great for entrepreneurs. It's great for small businesses.
It is.
But at the same time, it does take some, it's a little sad.
Compared to the exposés of years past, like this one that we're talking about, where they really had some great inventions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a lot of that.
This was not only a great invention. this was a culture-changing invention.
Sure.
Yeah. Which I guess you could argue. Everybody changes the world.
I know, but this was that was a great place to debut it.
Oh,
and that's where you kind of got people talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, we don't, that was a different way of communication there then.
Mm-hmm. So that was his interesting thing though, was demonstrating that radio communication. But the way he made his money and his claim to fame really was he graduated from Cooper Union, and he was the first to use sheets of naturally occurring mica in the dielectric in the capacitor. So before him, the capacitors were huge. All radio equipment was huge, and it was really hard to regulate the temperature of, because you're dealing with electricity and conducting on different surfaces and different materials to try to get waves to shoot out of antennas, or shoot out and be picked up by other antennas, so far away and so on. So his the mica that he used in his capacitor, it's actually still used today in different radios that are in extreme temperatures, like radios in Antarctica or in the desert or things like that. Because because it has a temperature coefficient of expansion, which is really low. Mm-hmm. So after inventing the mica capacitor, Dubier started manufacturing the capacitors, and he contributed to World War I by developing a system to detect submarines.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. The Dubier company was the earliest commercial manufacturer of capacitors, and in 1933 they merged with Cornell Radio.
Okay.
Yeah, to form the Cornell Dubier Electronics. Yeah.
Is that still around?
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Cornell Dubier. Or
I mean, I know Cornell University's around.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's and I believe that's sorry. He went to Cooper Union, not Cornell. But he was born, like I said before, in 1888 in New York. He was educated at Georgia DeWitt Clinton High School, Technology Institute, and then Cooper Institute in New York. And on top of radio equipment, he also invented medical apparatus.
Oh.
Yeah. His company holds over 355 patents, and he personally held 600 patents.
Wow.
Yeah. It said before he was 109 when he died, and there's not a lot written. There's not a lot of articles on the internet written about him, but he does have a biography out that was written by the Perham Foundation between 1911 and 1919, and it's called William Dubier Biography and 3 pamphlets.
Do you have kids?
He had I want to say it was either 1 or 2 kids and a wife.
Well, usually the wife helps to have the kids.
Generally, yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have any kids.
No, I don't think we would have any.
Probably not.
Yeah, it was weird. The doctor said I could never have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there when you were born.
Were you?
I saw the equipment. We're good.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Lots of pictures, too.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you guys want to, definitely look up that biography. It was definitely an interesting guy from what I was able to find out. But like I said, there's not a ton of articles on him, even though he was a really interesting fellow.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the most interesting people aren't always
very public,
talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I told you this before, but somebody had asked me a while ago if there was one person in history, if there's any person in history that you could meet, who would you want to meet? And my answer was, I would like to meet the person that had the most effect without their name being put out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The person behind the scenes. The person that, that shook all the hands and did all the work to promulgate all of these guys with the big names and so on and so, like Edison had so many people working under him and with him and gave him lots of ideas and. Well,
when you talk about people behind the scenes, I have to say that I immediately always think of my mom. So my mother was a secretary for our bishop, for many bishops, and worked in the World Missions Department of our church for years and years and years and years. Oh, yeah. She set up and ran conferences. She can do anything. I truly believe my mother literally can do anything.
Yeah.
And she's always been very gracious and very happy to be behind the scenes. But I've always taken that as an example that, you can do great things.
And you don't have to be recognized.
And you don't have to be right up there.
And there's a strength with that, too. I see her as noble, and I see her as strong. Nana, I love you, because Nana listens to all these. I love you,
Mommy.
And I do. I respect and I admire everything that you've done, not just in your work life, but for the family as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But that just speaks to her strength.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are talking about people behind the scenes, they're important people.
Absolutely.
Very
and they're
important.
Intelligent.
Oh, very smart.
And they're very hardworking. And I would say they were some of the most determined people. And I think that's why those kind of people interest me so much.
Gracious, too. Very gracious people. Because you have to be. Because, when you do a lot of work, and I'm not saying that other people don't. I mean,
No.
But when you do a lot of work and, a lot of other people take a lot of credit for that work,
mm-hmm.
You do have to be pretty gracious to go, that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of the people that worked under Edison, though, Reginald Aubry Fessenden.
That is a mouthful.
Mm-hmm. He was born in 1866. I almost said 66, but that would imply 19. 1866, and he died in 1932. He was Canadian-born. He did the majority of his work in the United States, and he also claimed U.S. citizenship through his American-born father. So during his life, he received hundreds of different patents in various fields, most notably ones related to radio and sonar. He's best known for his pioneering work developing radio technology, including the foundations of AM radio.
Okay.
AM is amplitude modulation radio, for those of you that did not know. And that is
And it's still going on today.
still going on today, and one of the precursors to podcasts.
Really?
Yeah,
I guess so.
AM radio, talk radio, then podcasts.
What about ham radio?
What about it?
Well, doesn't that precurse something?
Yeah. Well, that would be. I would consider that close to talk radio, like it would be in the same era.
Of course, you got to have like a certificate
A certificate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that much
to run
about
the ham radios. Yeah, you have to have like a whole certificate and take classes, and all that stuff has to be registered. Not really sure why. I guess something. I'm sure they'll come up with something.
It must be monitored or something like
National security, or I don't know. Who knows?
that. But Fessenden, he had the first transmission of speech by radio in 1900. Excuse me. And he also had the first two-way radio telegraphic communication across the Atlantic Ocean, 1906. In 1932, he reported that in late 1906, he had also made the first radio broadcasts of entertainment and music. So he was the first one to ever put music on the radio.
Yeah.
Although
Although
he claimed that, but there's a lack of verifiable details, and that's led to some doubts about the claim. So not everyone necessarily believes him, but that was his claim.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
Probably not a lot of people around right now to dispute his claims.
This is true. But back in the day, it was a hot topic.
I'm sure.
He was born in Quebec. He was the eldest of four children. His father was a minister, the Reverend Elijah Joseph Fessenden, and his mother was Clementina Trenholm.
Clementina.
Yeah. His father was a minister for the Church of England in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, and they moved to various posts throughout this for his childhood. Because they're moving around, he went to tons of different schools, but he was incredible in school. He attended Trinity College School by the age of 15. He spent a year there, and he started working with a bank, the Imperial Bank, at 16. He did this because he wasn't allowed to enroll in college yet. But even though he had surpassed all of the requirements to graduate primary school and get into college, but
There's
because
always somebody holding you back.
Yeah, because of that, he actually taught math to the younger and even some of the older students all the way through high school while he was still a teenager. And while he was teaching, he started out at Trinity College, but he went to Bishop's College, and that's where he started teaching. And he did that at 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet he would be like number one in Mensa if that was around then.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. So while he was teaching and before he was working at the bank, he was also studying with the university students. So they let him come to lectures and things like that, even though he wasn't technically enrolled in the college. He wasn't officially at college. But anyways, by the time he was 18, he left college without a degree. Though it was noted, and I guess the deans had noted, that he had done substantially all the work necessary to receive one.
Right.
But the lack of a degree definitely precluded him from a lot of the job opportunities that he was seeking, because obviously, as we know now in hindsight, he excelled in math and science.
A little bit.
Yeah. He needed this note because following this, he accepted a position at the Whitney Institute in Bermuda, where he worked for 2 years as the principal and the only teacher.
Really?
Yeah. And this was at 18. Yeah, until he was 20. And then in 1886, he went to New York, and he was in search of training in the skills of the electrical field, because that was what he was interested in. His classical, in quotation marks, education had not provided him with any electrical training. He wanted to work for Thomas Edison, because Edison obviously was a really big deal at the time.
Seriously, who would not want to work for Thomas Edison? I mean,
but
come on.
what was funny, it was at first Edison didn't want anything to do with him. Yeah, in his first application, Fessenden wrote, "Do not know anything about electricity, but can learn pretty quick." To which Edison replied, "Have enough men now who do not know about electricity." Could you imagine that? Have your idol react you back? Yeah, there's enough people in the world that are in your position, man. I don't need
I don't need you.
I don't need you.
I need somebody that knows about electricity.
Yeah. However, he persisted, he persevered, he constantly sent applications and letters, and before the end of the year, he was hired for a semi-skilled position as an assistant tester for the Edison Machine Works Company.
Good job.
Which, he was laying the underground electrical mains in New York City. So he's definitely the reason that a lot of the communication lines in New York City are there. He quickly proved his worth and he received tons of promotions with increasing responsibility for the project to the point where he was taking over the project. And of course, he's still, in his early 20s at this point. And the 1890s was when he made his contributions to radio. He improved the transmission parts developed by Marconi. In 1902, his research that he was working on, finally got funded, and it was turned into the National Electric Signaling Company. And he started the Transatlantic Project, which was actually the project that tried to send radio waves over the Atlantic Ocean. So he was the first one to send radio waves across the Atlantic. And they set up these antennas, one in the U.S. and one in the U.K., and they were, I think, 400 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah. But the project ended because one of the towers collapsed.
Well,
yeah.
That's a downer.
Yeah. Yeah, he also developed the CW transmitter, or the consistent wave transmitter, which is why we're able now to transmit audio.
Oh.
Yeah, because before it was sporadic and it would only transfer like the little bumps that would allow for the telegraph across the wireless radio waves. But he figured out that if you basically sped up the electricity, which is why he also invented the alternator, that you could transmit radio waves consistently. Yeah. So he was the first.
Good on him for being persistent.
Yeah, yeah. His perseverance and that story is such a testament to the diligence that it takes to really pursue what you want. Pursue what you want.
What your passion is. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he sat there and got mired down with all the bureaucrats not letting him go to college because of age and whatever, but still continued to learn and made sure that he learned.
Not only did he continue to learn, he worked for the college. He taught for the college. Yeah. So all the people that were basically prohibiting him from getting the education that he so rightfully deserved, he worked for them.
Right. Right. But that's a testament to, being a self-made man. There's not a lot of self-made people anymore that actually go out and just pursue.
Well, there are, but it's of a different caliber for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I hate to do this, but we're out of time.
Are we really? Because we're not even done talking.
I know. Well, we did get through all three of our guys.
Barely.
Just barely. Just under the wire.
Well, okay, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot more to be said,
There is a lot more to be said, and we will say more next week.
Next week? Well, okay.
Yeah.
Have to figure out what you're bringing me for dinner next week.
Yeah.
You know what? That's like the age-old question. What are we having for dinner?
Yeah. Well, I could bring dinner next week.
I'm just kidding.
Well, we love you guys so much, and we're just so thankful for all of our listeners, for all of you guys listening in. Of course, like we said a million times before, we have a blast doing this.
We do. We really do.
It's just so much fun.
And I'm blessed to have a kiddo that, that wants to do it and spend time with his mother. Because I know some of you are like, oh my gosh, I don't like my mom. So I'm very happy that my kids still like me,
Well, what's not to like?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure one of you's got a list.
Well, I think my list has gotten smaller and smaller as I've gotten out of being a teenager.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it really does.
We become smarter and smarter the older you get.
Yeah. Well, smarter or more, maybe just better at noticing things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard life described once as basically a spiral staircase that you see the same thing over and over again, but you see it from a higher perspective every year.
Okay.
Yeah. Or a different perspective every year. Because there is nothing new under the sun.
No, there's nothing new under the sun. Just stuff we haven't maybe put together yet.
Yeah, just stuff we haven't put into words. But again, thank you guys so much for spending this time from us. If you guys want to contribute, please hit up our Patreon page, follow our Instagram, and check the link in our bio, or on our Facebook pages, Changing Seasons and Hip and Humble on Facebook. We have all our links listed in the bios of all these pages and accounts. So again, thanks you guys so much. Stay hip
and humble.
All right, bye.
Bye.
I'm Cece Schatz, and I'd like to welcome you to Going Solo Network, #1 complete singles connection. We strive to connect singles in a positive and fun way. Together, singles will begin to make new and lasting friendships, learn more about themselves, and embrace our new today lifestyle of going solo. Being single doesn't mean you have to be alone, and you can live a full, fun life, bringing your vibration to a higher level of attraction. Going Solo Network is an interactive social support singles community with several platforms helping singles connect with other like-minded individuals. We cover things like relationship loss, divorce recovery, embracing being single, single parenting, restructuring relationships, relationship building, transition into dating, and dating itself, solo in business, and going solo travelers. Be sure to join our private and exclusive fun interactive websites designed for singles today who want to begin to embrace living and enjoying the space they're in. Together we will learn to open our hearts, our minds. We will begin to share and connect with others while exploring our personal life goals as we begin to make a place in our new life. We will start to move forward in going solo to actually living our best lives. Going solo doesn't mean you have to be alone. Today, together, let's begin changing your life. Today, join the singles at Going Solo Network and start to live your new life. I'll see you there on GoingSoloNetwork.com.
You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio Channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.